view, the South Vietnamese Army was useless and is useless?
Yes, sir.
This man, a regular colonel, is seriously hurt, shot in the head by the Viet Cong and needing urgent hospital care.
If you're going to go into war, go to fight it and go to win it. That's what I thought it was about, and a lot of people got killed for nothing as far as I'm concerned.
This is a historic moment, the arrival of the North Vietnamese Regular Army in Saigon.
This is now the defense of Saigon. A few days ago we were north in Da Nang and much the same kind of artillery was being pushed towards Tam Key. These guns are firing now about 15-20 miles up the road towards the Cambodian border at Tay Ninh. The communists are now surrounding Tay Ninh, and this morning they were sending their shells into this base. How far away the communists are now is anyone's guess, because this is the front line as far as Saigon is concerned. All these guns are firing towards Tay Ninh. There is still a civilian population inside that city. As far as these troops are concerned, and to any observers who are watching this, Tay Ninh must be the make or break for the Saigon government. If Tay Ninh falls, Da Nang must be next. And the only important remaining city in South Vietnam after that is Saigon. Michael Nicholson, News at 10 on the road to Tay Ninh in South Vietnam.
During the 9 years of the Vietnam War, nearly 50,000 Americans were killed. But, and this is often forgotten, nearly 3 times that number were wounded seriously enough to need hospital treatment at places like this, the Veterans Hospital in Miami. 3 patients here told me of their reactions to what's happening in Vietnam now. You're saying that in your view the Vietnamese Army, South Vietnamese Army was useless and is useless?
Yes, sir.
So was it all a waste of time being there anyway?
Well, if we could have stopped the communist invasion and given the right of way to fight a battle the way it should have been fought, I think it would have been stopped.
Do you think that it was a complete waste of time, America being there?
Well, I hated to see my brothers get hurt for something that in the end run is, you see Vietnamese people, army soldiers or whatever they might be, whatever they claim to be. They'll never be soldiers. They just weren't fighting men. They threw down their arms like they're doing now and took off. They did the same thing back in '65. They never were soldiers.
They had funny little rules about fighting the war. You could only go so far, you could only carry so many bombs, you could only do this, do that. And if you're going to go into war, go to fight it and go to win it. That's what I thought it was about, and a lot of people got killed for nothing as far as I'm concerned. The country there has been under domination of somebody else for quite hundreds of years, and it matters little to the common, ordinary people, I think, in Vietnam who's running the country, as long as they've got something to eat and a place to sleep.
Well, how much can you do for someone?
And that's what I believe. If the other nations think that we are totally giving up, I wish they'd look at the whole picture of what we did and the way we went about it, and should we just jump right back in there where we left off? I don't believe we should.
Those reactions are typical of much of the reaction around the United States generally. Some anger, some bitterness, yes, but above all, an overwhelming confusion. Confusion that all that the United States did for South Vietnam, the cost in money, skill, and lives, can apparently have evaporated so quickly.
At 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, Vietnamese time, the relief plane had landed at Saigon airport. For 2 hours, we waited on the tarmac for an unknown number of Vietnamese orphans to be brought to the plane. The delay was caused by the Vietnamese authorities, who at the last minute didn't want to let the children leave. They'd been kept sitting in the buses in the sweltering midday sun for 2 hours, and they arrived at the plane tired, frightened, and dehydrated. Just under 100 of them were carried or walked and limped to the plane. Several were half-caste, the unwanted byproducts of the American involvement in Vietnam. The editor of the Daily Mail, Mr. David English, was in overall charge of the charter. Some crippled children had received treatment in England through the Ockenden venture, whose leader, Mrs. Rennie Beach, doubts whether they should be taken from Vietnam permanently. This baby, it looks as if his head's been injured.
No, it's one of the ones from one of the orphanages, and it's just got boils and it's got a very infected ear. But they've all got scabies and infection, and there's bronchitis. They all have quite a lot of bronchitis.
It's like this in a lot of orphanages.
Yes, yes. You only have to go into the orphanages, and the smell is terrible. They're all just lying around and fed out of one spoon, and they're just sort of lying on the floor in muck, really.
Doctors and nurses from the Save the Children Fund turned the front of the plane into an intensive care unit. They were solely concerned with the in-flight comfort of the children. What's the condition of this baby?
It's quite critical. It's suffering from a condition known as marasmus, which is sheer starvation.
How is it a boy or a girl?
It's a boy.
How old is he?
He's about 8 months, I would think.
About 8 months?
7 or 8 months, yes. At a guess, we haven't got any name on him at the moment, but at a guess I would say.
And what can you do for him at the moment?
Well, mainly fluids, and he is drinking. He's just taken 8 ounces, 6 ounces, and then followed by 2 ounces. He's having penicillin, and just to get him hydrated mainly, I think that would be the...
And when you get him back to England, he'll make a good recovery, will he?
I think so, he will, yes. Within a month, you'll see a drastic change in him.
On the way out to Saigon, some of the doctors and nurses in the team were wondering whether it was really right to take Vietnamese orphans away from their home country. And now that they've seen the condition of some of the worst ones here, they're convinced that it was right. But over the children who are not ill, controversy rages. Many argue they would be better left in Vietnam, particularly if the communists take over, because their social services can only be an improvement on the South's. And if peace comes, the children's large families would eventually reclaim them. Others argue the Vietnamese families have been irrevocably scattered by the war, and that placing in a good new family, even if Christian and not Buddhist, must be better than life in an orphanage, however well run. The Reverend Patrick Ash, leader of the Project for Vietnam Orphans, is firmly committed to settling these children with Christian families. Most of the children in his care are under 2, and he claims to have enough adoptive parents for all of them. But groups like the Ockenden Venture feel the cultural change to England is too great. They have homes in Saigon for polio victims like Min, aged about 7, abandoned by her mother when she caught polio at 2. Careful treatment, both in Vietnam and England, means she can now walk. And if the situation stabilizes in Saigon, before long, she and many like her will go back to the country and culture that is their own.
But as they arrived here in London, well wrapped up against the cold midnight air, that possibility really did seem half a world away. Into coaches then, to go first to be sorted out and given something to eat, and then on to hospital or to the Ockenden Venture homes in Surrey. It's here at Hazelmere and in another home in Camberley that these orphans will be looked after until their future is decided. Most of them are too young to know what is happening, or too tired after 24 hours of travelling and getting to bed at 5 in the morning. Some already have their adoption arranged, but not all here. 4 will go to Belgium, 24 to France, and so far 9 to couples here in Britain. Others will stay on at the home, like these 5 little girls who were here once before for polio treatment. One day, maybe, they'll go back to Vietnam when life there is less violent. But despite the immediate high spirits, there are bound to be problems. This morning, the toys came out, and the slow process of readjustment, of teaching and learning new ways started. The arguments for and against bringing these children here at all will undoubtedly go on, but hopefully well above the heads of these 99 children from Saigon. Desmond Hamill, News at 10, Hazelmere in Surrey.
Dr. Min, although that's not his real name, is an ordinary enough Saigon GP. Sore throats, stomach upsets, the usual kind of thing. Although he's probably not typical in having been to both Britain and the United States. He works hard, surgery from 10 to 12, and again from 3 to 7, with visits and emergencies on top of that. A 6.5-day week. The reason he doesn't want his name used is that 21 years ago, Dr. Min and his family left Hanoi when the communists took power, and then came to Saigon. Now he's worried that they'll take Saigon, and he and his wife wonder where they'll go next. Mrs. Min is also from Hanoi. You wouldn't think that she has 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls, the eldest 18, the youngest 6 months. As she does the shopping, walking from her husband's surgery to the market, she must also be wondering what the next few weeks and months hold in store. And she's not alone. 2 million people escaped from the north in 1954 when the French evacuated and the communists took over and settled in the south, mainly in Saigon. Many of them were Catholics and, like the Mins, say they have no desire to live under communist rule. And many are afraid that they'll be killed if they do fall under communist rule. In fact, Mrs. Min wanted to know if the West would evacuate the people who wanted to escape. I asked how many she was thinking of, and her husband said 1 million. No doubt the Mins, being probably fairly well connected and fairly well off, will have a better chance than most. But at the moment, it's impossible to leave. The government don't grant exit visas. But while these troubling thoughts are the constant background of their daily lives, a Saigon housewife faces other problems. Food prices are rising fast. They've doubled in the past year, and according to Mrs. Min, go up practically every day.
Rice, which is to the Vietnamese what bread is to the British, has also very nearly doubled in price and is now expensive for the more poorly paid. And yet the Mekong Delta south of Saigon is one of the great rice-growing areas of the world. 5 of the men children go to day school. They come home for an hour for lunch. Today it's duck with rice and shrimp soup. Some of the schools have already closed down, and others are holding the equivalent of O and A level exams at the end of the month, 2 months early, instead of the end of June. Then they will close, another sign of the times. The Vietnamese are a sociable people, but here again, drastic changes are affecting them. Do you go out to the cinema or the theatre? Or?
Before, yes, but not now. It is better to stay with a whole family in the house.
Is that because people are frightened, or?
Yes, the people are frightened.
Compared to the hundreds of thousands of refugees living hand to mouth in other parts of the country, the Mins are extremely well off. What makes them look worried is the thought that they too might have to join that flood. Sandy Call, News at 10, Saigon.
Dust off. They still use the American expression for these medical evacuation flights which have saved so many lives. Without them, the enormous casualty rate would be even higher. Although the Delta is fairly quiet at the moment, there's always a raid practically every night on some small town or lonely outpost like this one in Vinh Binh province. This man, a member of the regional forces, a kind of home guard, was wounded in one of these. They're usually rocket attacks. The Viet Cong are back in the Delta, in strength, backed up by 1 North Vietnamese division, and more could come in quickly from the Parrot's Beak. For this is the prize and the reason why the Indochina War has been fought for the past 30 years. The Mekong River Delta, the rich rice bowl and most thickly populated area in Vietnam. Without its food, Saigon would starve. The first wounded is going to be treated here, but this man, a regular colonel, is more seriously hurt, shot in the head by the Viet Cong and needing urgent hospital care. As the helicopter climbs to 4,000 feet, the 2 men who double as gunners and medical orderlies struggle to keep him alive. The saline drip is not working, and they have to reinsert the needle as the helicopter bucks through a brief storm. After repeated tries, they finally succeeded. These medics fly the dust-off missions like other people take the commuter train. Their skill has saved many lives. It is one advantage the South Vietnamese have over their opponents, and it's about the only one. Sandy Gore, News at 10, in the Delta.
This shows really how vulnerable the situation is now around Saigon. Here we are on the very outskirts of the city, beside the big bridge that goes over the Saigon River. Last night, a group of communist troops blew up an American Army warehouse just over there, and the communist sappers who did it are then said to have taken refuge either under the bridge or just the other side of the bridge. So this morning all traffic is stopped, nothing is moving, and we're waiting to see whether the South Vietnamese airborne troops are going to try and clean it up and open this road up, as I say, about 6 miles, 7 miles from the middle of Saigon.
Cối này đi rồi. Cối đợi đi với một cây súng cối. Đem lại đi nè. đẩy qua sân tới sân.
The communist machine gun post is just down off the end of the bridge, and it is keeping the airborne from attacking. So now they've brought in the helicopters with rockets, and they're rocketing from up here right down just over the end of the bridge to where the machine gun post is.
The fighting around Saigon in the last 2 days we were there was desperate. The fight for Newport Bridge, only 2 miles out of Saigon, was the bloodiest we've seen. Early Monday morning, a Viet Cong sapper unit, probably no more than 20 or 30 men and women, attacked and set fire to an American USAID installation, closing the bridge and Highway 1. Again and again, this company of South Vietnamese troops worked their way down the far side of the bridge, and again they were mortared, taking many casualties, leaving many dead.
The troops are now moving down on the other side of Newport Bridge. There's AK fire coming in from the factory. But now they've crossed the hump of the bridge, it means they're advancing anyway. We still don't know how many there are down there. We thought about 12 earlier today. An armored car's going up on the left. There's no way of shifting these people. There must be, 500 or 600 troops on this bridge, fighting probably a dozen or so, maybe 20 at the most, communists, and yet there they are, they've been there all today.
There was a desperation in these troops and their commanders we'd not seen before. Despite the mortars hitting the bridge to the left, only 50 yards away, these men kept their places, pulling their dead and wounded out and returning. Through the smoke, we could just see a Viet Cong running left to right, just for a second or so, and then falling as he was hit by machine gun fire. Quickly, the very forward unit of South Vietnamese ran, throwing hand grenades 30 feet ahead of them. The smoke turned on us again, and out of it, in the briefest lull in the crossfire, soldiers came running out carrying children. The firefight lasted another 2 hours, but because of our open position on the bridge, there was no way we ourselves could get out. But a final charge and a last volley of hand grenades, and the fight to reopen Newport Bridge on Highway 1 was over.
So the battle for Newport Bridge ends this evening, back in South Vietnamese hands. And a half an hour ago, these men were told that they had a new president. President Minh installed in the presidential palace, the man who they hope, we hope, will bring peace to this country.
The docks on Tuesday morning were crammed with thousands of Vietnamese desperate to escape from Saigon by any means possible. The harbor was full of small cargo ships, full of people who were going to attempt the impossible, try and sail down the river to the sea. The sandbags were to stop the B-40 rockets and communist shells that would certainly be fired at them in this desperate, perhaps suicidal attempt. As we, the press and the Americans evacuating, made our drive through Saigon to the American embassy, people, mostly families, pleaded with us for a seat, and they hung to the coach. The coach behind us suddenly accelerated, and children hanging on the side fell off and under the wheels. The city was suddenly choked with people, lorries and cars, all chasing one American evacuation convoy after the other. Jams that the Vietnamese police tried to clear with their rifles, but people were no longer afraid of them. There was now so much more to be afraid of. But then suddenly we too, the 40 or 50 of us in the safety of the coaches, had to get out and fight our way to the American compound where the helicopters were landing to fly us and the thousands more out of the country. Seeing us in the streets with our bags, the Vietnamese followed. Any chance they thought was better than none. But the embassy gates were closed, and we, like the frightened Vietnamese and their families, had to fight and claw our way up. And we did claw, and we did fight. And if it wasn't for one single American Marine, whose name I didn't have the chance or time to discover, we would never have climbed our way to our evacuation. He hauled us up, kicking and punching Vietnamese who were clambering over our bodies. Ashamed and exhausted, we took our turn in the long crowd of refugees inside the embassy compound and waited for the helicopters to come down for us. One by one they came in, landing on an improvised pad in the car park. All had come from American aircraft carriers steaming 20 miles out in the South China Sea. Marines guarded each of the 4 embassy gates as the lucky people ran 30 at a time to their transport to safety. In the first 6 hours of Tuesday, over 1,500 people were airlifted out this way, and almost as many more were still waiting their turn. Our turn came just as it began to get dark, a little after 7:30. Evacuees from the besieged city on. And 30 minutes later, we landed safely on our carrier off the South Vietnamese coast.
These people are waiting, hopefully, but I imagine vainly, for a helicopter to land here on the roof of the American embassy in the middle of Saigon and take them to safety. But they have no papers. They've just come here because the whole embassy is wide open. They've come up the stairs. They're in fact on the chopper pad. No helicopter would probably land under these circumstances. And so they wait here vainly. Possibly a helicopter will come back, but it looks most unlikely because about 8:10 this morning, what looked like a final Marine helicopter touched down here briefly, took aboard a handful of Marines, and then lifted off. And that looked like the end of the American evacuation.
I had one select man that should definitely have left. I was waiting for him. He's sitting up here now, and here we are.
How do you rate the chances?
Negligible now.
Do you think the last ones have gone?
I think they're all gone. I think these people up here are committing suicide staying up here, but what can you do?
Taken out, you think? You think he flew out yesterday?
Yeah, him will.
Okay, and you're just staying on? Fine, thank you very much indeed. Wish you the best of luck.
I hope you can drag me go see him.
Well.
I'm very happy that General Min come, see? So I see very happy. I cannot say anything now.
You think it's right to stop
Yeah, that's
fighting?
right, yeah. Because the Vietnamese people all the fight, but more than 25 years now. So now we don't have to stop fight, you know. I'm very happy, you know, very happy for the whole lot of kids and me, all the people of the Vietnamese Army.
What are you going to do yourself now?
Right now, if the peace, if I don't have the job, I can take care of one taxis. I can ride around, make the money every day for my wife and my baby. That's all I want to do.
Drive a taxi.
Everybody happy with the peace. See, that's all I want to do.
Everybody's happy.
Everybody happy. Don't want to fight anymore.
This is a historic moment, the arrival of the North Vietnamese Regular Army in Saigon, right in the middle of Saigon, just after 12 o'clock, just after noon. Here they are, pouring down the main avenue. Further up there is the American embassy, and at this end of the avenue, is the former presidential palace, which President Chu left just over a week ago, and from which General Min has today announced that he will unconditionally hand over to the new regime. And here they are, arriving in Saigon. Well, this is the presidential palace under new management. There they are, the regular troops of the North Vietnamese Army on the balcony. Above them, the flag, the North Vietnamese flag. They are now the new masters.
ăn lên đây xong rồi em không có thọ qua bờ Thiên Bình. Cách đây về cái gì? Đâu có thọ nữa thọ. Phát. Thảo.